Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 2 review series. And today I'm going to be talking about episode 6, Tried and True, which I have just finished watching. And this episode was really good. I really enjoyed this one a lot, and we got to learn more about Bizarro. We got to learn more about his backstory, and for the first half of this episode we got to see things from Bizarro's point of view and how he ended up on this Earth. And I have to give mega props to Tyler Hoechlin for playing a double dual role. The way he is able to make Superman and Bizarro feel like two separate beings is just incredible. And we've seen things like this before in Smallville. We saw this in Superman 3, and of course we've seen it in the DCAU shows. But I have always longed to see an actor play two dual roles in a Superman TV show. I mean, we did have it in the New Adventures of Superman, Lois and Clark, but it wasn't really Bizarro in the traditional sense. And as I've mentioned many reviews ago, the last time that we've had someone play a Bizarro type of character was in 1988 in the Superboy TV show. So that's a pretty long time to actually get the traditional Bizarro character in live action in a TV format in this environment. So I have to give mega props to Tyler Hoechlin for playing both dual roles and playing them very well, I might say. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's happened so far, and then we're going to get straight into talking about episode 6. So basically what's happened is we saw Bizarro and Superman go at it, and Superman took Bizarro to the other Fortress of Solitude, which belongs to Morgan Edge, and we learned from Bizarro, who actually talked normal through Kryptonian translating thanks to Superman's Kryptonian mum, Lara, that Bizarro is here on Earth trying to stop Ali. Now, Ali, as we all know, she's being built up as this cult-like villain, and she drugged Chrissy, and as a result of that, Chrissy went to the other side and saw a Bizarro version of herself. And we learned at the very end of the last episode that Bizarro is here on Earth to stop Ali from crossing over to the other side and becoming all-powerful, because Ali, from Bizarro's world, is the enemy. So we got to learn a bit more about why Bizarro is here, and of course Superman is not going to let Bizarro hurt anyone, because so far Bizarro has been out of control. And there have been a number of versions, as I've said in the past, with Bizarro. We've had Bizarro where he's silly, we've had Bizarro where he's portrayed as this Frankenstein misunderstood monster. I would say this Bizarro so far, from what we have seen, I wouldn't really say Bizarro is evil, as far as we know. I would say Bizarro is more misguided and confused. Not so much like the silly, dopey Frankenstein-like monster from many years ago. He's just Superman, but in reverse, but not in the sense like me and Bizarro. Bizarro is just trying to do what he feels is the right thing. And I like the way they've showcased that throughout this episode, and the way they played it up at the end of the last episode as well. So I think they've done a pretty good job so far with the way they've handled the Bizarro character as far as the Arrowverse is concerned. So with that all said, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about episode 6, Tried and True. And before we get started, I just want to quickly say mega props to Amy Jo Johnson for doing a fantastic job in directing this episode. And for those of you who know that name, Amy Jo Johnson is, of course, one of the mainstays and cornerstones of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers TV show, where she played Kimberly / the Pink Ranger. And I have to say, she is an amazing director, and she really did a good job in making this episode feel like a mini movie. And I hope she is invited back to direct more episodes, because I think she is really good at it, and it really shows throughout this episode a lot. So this episode kicks off with a shot of Bizarro in Smallville, but it's not Smallville that we know. This is Smallville from Bizarro's world. And just like the yellow sun gives Superman his powers, the red sun gives Bizarro his powers. So they're definitely playing off the opposites with Superman and Bizarro, and in reverse. And we learn from Bizarro's point of view how he ended up on this Earth. And we see him taking on a number of different soldiers, and we see him come face to face with a version of Lana from his world, and Lana Lang has got superpowers, and we see the two of them go at it for a little while. And then Bizarro, in the uniform which we last saw him in a few episodes back, takes to the skies and he starts to dig underground, and that is how he ended up on this Earth. And Bizarro explains to Superman that if Ali acquires both pendants, she will become godlike and not powerful, and Bizarro will not be able to stop her. And Bizarro also explains to Superman that, unlike Superman, in his world, Bizarro is not exactly loved and respected. Everybody hates and fears him. So it's quite interesting to see how Bizarro and Superman are like the complete polar opposites in everything. Bizarro has fire breath, Superman has ice breath, and the red sun gives Bizarro his powers, yellow sun gives Superman his powers. So it's quite interesting to see how they play the opposites with those two. And also, in the last episode, Kyle was revealed to have cheated on Lana, and we see that drama played out more in this episode. I could have probably have done without the drama. I mean, it was okay. It didn't overshadow the main story, but it was just one of those things that it wasn't really needed. But it was okay. I mean, we didn't get too much of it. And also, we see Jordan has been using X-Kryptonite through a yellow inhaler, which allows him to have superpowers. And as a result of using the yellow XK kryptonite, he is able to win all of his football games. But eventually he does get caught out by Jordan, and this leads to these two having a massive argument. And speaking of massive arguments, we see General Sam Lane trying to get Lois and Lucy Lane to patch up their differences, because as we all know, a couple of episodes back, Lucy Lane was revealed to be involved with Ali and her cult-like beliefs. So they played up more of that story in this episode as well. And also, in this episode, we saw Jordan trying to justify about the fact that he now has superpowers, but he's not got the superpowers the way Jordan has. He's been getting it through this X-yellow kryptonite, through this inhaler thing. And also, in this episode, General Anderson was played up to be more of a villain, because so far, Superman and General Anderson, they haven't been seen eye to eye, but things really get to a massive head here. And we see here Superman has been holding back information about Bizarro, and General Anderson wants him to work with him, and of course Superman is not going to, so that really comes to a massive head in this episode. And we see that Superman is not going to fall in line to General Anderson's demands, so that got to a massive payoff towards the end of this episode, which I'm going to get into in a moment. Superman explains to General Anderson that he has captured Bizarro and intends to destroy Bizarro's pendant. And of course, this upsets General Anderson, and we see him lure Superman into a trap and douses him in red solar radiation lamps, and we see him being taken prisoner. And things really start to take a dark twist. And it's quite interesting to see that when Superman was going at it with the soldiers, it was just like the mirror opposite of what we saw at the beginning of this episode, where we saw Bizarro taking on the soldiers. So clearly, both worlds are parallel to each other, and I found that quite interesting, and really adds another layer to how Bizarro and Superman are very, very different from each other, but not so different, if that makes any sense. And also, in this episode, we also saw Lucy and Lois have some sort of reconciliation, but eventually that reunion was short lived and the two of them came to blows once again. And also, we saw Kyle beg to Lana for a second chance, but of course, she tells him to pack his stuff and move out. So we had more of that drama played out again. And then towards the end of the episode, we see Lois has picked up the tension, and General Sam Lane informs Lois that Superman has been arrested and captured for treason. And we see at the end, we see Superman is taken away and is going to be locked up in the same cell as Morgan Edge. And that pretty much ends episode 6, and that wraps up my review. Overall, I thought this was an excellent episode. Could have done without the Lana and Kyle drama, but thankfully it didn't overshadow the main story. And Jordan finding out that Jonathan has been taking yellow X kryptonite inhaler is quite interesting. So I'm wondering if they're planning on making Jonathan a version of Superboy, because for the most part it looks like Jordan is going to be Superboy or a version of Superboy, but time will tell really. But I'm enjoying that little story arc, and of course the Bizarro stuff has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to see how that's going to play out as well. And I also enjoyed how for the first half of this episode we got to see from Bizarro's point of view of how he ended up on this Earth and how he got the pendants, and it turns out now he got the pendants from Ali from his world. So I really enjoyed the way they were able to explain and fill in the gaps of how and why Bizarro is here on this Earth and what his agenda is. And him telling Superman that Ali must die was quite interesting because, Superman, depending on what version you read, Superman has never been one for killing. But to hear Bizarro talk about wanting to take another person's life was really interesting. And it really tells you how much polar opposites those two really are. So that's going to be it from me. I am going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on episode 6? Did you enjoy it? What do you think about Jonathan getting superpowers through this X kryptonite inhaler? How do you think this is going to play out? Do you think it's possible that we could see him become a version of Superboy? And also, what was your thoughts on the first half of this episode? And we got to see from Bizarro's point of view. Do you think Bizarro is right in his actions, or do you think he's lying about Ali? And also, what was your thoughts on General Anderson turning on Superman and using the red solar lamps? Is it possible that General Anderson is actually a villain? And also, what does this mean for Superman now that he's been arrested and accused of treason? How do you think that story arc is going to play out? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Superman and Lois Season 2 review series, where I am going to be talking about episode 7, which I am very much looking forward to seeing and talking about, especially with the way this episode ended. Should be a good one, and as I said at the beginning, mega props to Amy Jo Johnson for doing a fantastic job in directing this episode, and I hope she comes back to do more. And the way she was able to make this episode feel like a mini-movie is just one of the classic examples of why Superman and Lois is one of the best shows in the Arrowverse at the moment. So until next time, take care everybody and stay safe, and once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.